Okay, welcome to our next webinar. This is the 8th we've done so far here at Stallion AI Service and the 5th in the Stallion AI Management Series. So a big warm welcome to everybody who's been following us along this journey. We've enjoyed it and I hope you'll enjoy tonight as well. Tonight's something slightly different again. We're talking all about the frozen semen side, how we process frozen semen. Before we start on that, we've been joined again by Bart Calls from Germany. Bart most probably freezes more stallions, I suppose, virtually than anybody else in the world, really. You know, he manages all the Shockamo stallions. So, as I said last time, what he doesn't know about freezing semen isn't worth knowing. So it's great to have him on board. He's a wealth of knowledge, and we actually share our knowledge. We have done for the last sort of 4 or 5 years. So he's a great asset. So he'll be here to answer some of your questions. And hopefully maybe challenge me a little bit about our practice, but we don't always do things exactly the same, but hopefully we end up with a very similar result. Tonight, you can carry on putting your questions through. We normally get about 40 or 50 questions that come through. We try and answer as many as we can, and if not, I know Pam will get back to you if there's anything else later on. So Faye is here tonight, so Faye will be putting the questions through. And as of last week, Pam, our lab manager, she's going to be here helping. Pam is a wealth of knowledge. Pam's been with me for, I think, 9 years, and we're working this out. Faye's been with me for 8 years, so part of our team at Stallion AI. So Pam will be doing that side of things. We've got a few, so get the questions coming in. Anything about the frozen semen, we'll try and answer them. We've got a few poll questions tonight, and so we will be putting them through as well. Also, without our sponsors, we couldn't run these webinars, and so we really appreciate MiniTube tonight is one of our main sponsors tonight, and they are, we're going to talk a bit about them later, but they sell equine reproduction or a lot of animal reproduction products all over the world. Also, Equine Reproduction Supplies, that's a company that I own in partnership with Ellie Mitchell, and a lot of you may have bought equipment from the UK, and we are the distributors of the MiniTube products as well. So thank you very much for sponsoring. The series sponsor, which is Spillers, appreciate you obviously you're sponsoring the whole series for the Stallion AI side of things. On the sponsorship side, we're really reaching out to a big diverse group of people. So if you want to sponsor these webinars, just let us know. I love all my stats. We've been working out the other day. We've got an average between 25 and 27 different countries are watching us every night. And behind the camera tonight, we've actually got a South African, Etienne. He's stepped into Lucinda's shoes tonight, so he'll be doing all the camera work. But going back to that, yeah, we're reaching out to 27 different countries. Overall, we've done 41 different countries and 6,000 delegates over the 8 webinars. So we're always looking for obviously new sponsors, so if you're thinking about that, great. The big giveaway tonight, we're giving away not 1 but 2 freezing collections. So that's worth, could be up to £500. So one lucky person, I hope you've got a stallion. If you've got a gelding or a mare, maybe not work, but I'm sure you can give it to someone else. But it's 2 freezing collections. It doesn't include the livery or the health test, but it's the collections and doses frozen off those 2. So what are we going to talk about tonight? It's obviously everything about the frozen side. So we're going to talk about, go over a little bit of the same ground as 2 weeks ago. We're going to talk about lab setup, how the lab is set out, which is very important when it comes down to processing semen, even more so, I think, with frozen. The equipment needed, we're going to do that first. We're going to quickly go around the lab, all the bits and pieces you need for freezing semen. We're going to process a little bit of frozen semen. Obviously, time is not on our side. We can't be here for hours. We tend to be for a bit, so we can do as much as we can right the way through. We're going to thaw a bit of semen as well at the end and show some post-thaw. And we're going to talk about what is in a dose. What's a dose of semen? It's so confusing sometimes. People, is it 1 straw? Is it 6 straws? What is it? Post-thaw testing. A little bit about storage and distribution. I mean, obviously, we've been doing this now for 25 years, freezing semen. We've been doing AI for 30 years. And we've picked up a lot of tips and tricks. We're going to give away a lot of tips and tricks, not everything, because obviously we've got to keep a little bit back for our uniqueness and what we do here. But we're going to be talking a lot about the tips and tricks as well, how to freeze stallions. hot off the press, and we got some great news. We've been for the next webinar. We've been talking about for the last sort of 7 months all about the stallion. Well, in a week's time, it's all about the girls. It's all about the mares. So Edward, we're going to go behind the scenes at Twemlow Stud. We're going to need everything you need to know about taking your mare to stud. So we've been asked and asked and asked again to see can we do this. So Edward's going to do this next week with some of the vets. We're going to see a mare being scanned. So there's so much to see. That's next Wednesday. Don't forget, we're normally on a Thursday. This is on a Wednesday next week because of the Bolesworth foal auction. Charity tonight is the same one that we'll be using all the time, which is the Horse Trust. So you'll get an email at the end of this. So please donate to the Horse Trust if you can. And lastly, just thank British Breeding really for putting these nights on. Without them, we couldn't do it. And Rachel in the background, every Thursday night's a late one for you. So we'll, really appreciate putting on all the videos and everything else. So, right, so we'll have just a quick wander around the lab. So we come this way, Etienne, and a lot of it's about lab setup to start with. It's how you set up the lab, like we did last time. But before we start that is, why should we be freezing off our stallions? There's lots of different ways that why we want to freeze off these stallions. One of the ways is maybe preserving the genetics. So a lot for rare breeds, some of these really rare endangered species, we can freeze this semen or those genetics in time, and they can be there forever, really, and bring them out for when they're needed. We can do a worldwide export. We can ship the semen all over the world. We're going to do a whole webinar all about export, health testing and all that on another time. But the beauty about that, we can spread the genetics all over the world. We don't have to breed by distance or the small distance. We can do it. The world is our oyster out there. Put here, rare breed banking for the future. We talked about that. Semen is always available. Some of these stallions are now competing, so they can carry out a competition schedule as well as a breeding schedule. Unfortunately, when the stallion passes away, obviously we can carry on as well. Stallion, obviously, we get quite a few stallions as 3- and 4-year-olds come into us, or with a 3-year-old, and they might be castrated, but they want a little bit of semen beforehand, so they collect the semen, castrated, and they go home. So, there's lots and lots of different reasons. Bart, can you hear me from Germany?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
I presume most of the reason you're freezing the semen is because you've got some top class competition stallions out there, and you want to be obviously be able to spread their genetics all over the world. So I presume that's one of the main reasons that you collect and freeze in the winter time. Is that right?
Yeah, we freeze out the season all the stallions just to protect the semen we have from the stallions for if they are shows or not able for the moment, and also because fresh season we can do Germany, Holland, Belgium, maybe Denmark, but then no more. And with the frozen stuff we can go around all over. So yeah, that's a big market, a really big market. At good frozen.
Yeah, and like you say, you do mostly in the winter. We've actually, this year, we have more stallions coming in freezing for the COVID situation, and people obviously can't compete with horses, so they send them in. So anyway, without further ado, we'll move around the lab, and we're just going to show you again. You may have seen this 2 weeks ago, but it is really important how you set your lab up. I think it's even more important when you're freezing semen, how you set your lab up. Process it as it is for chilled. So you have your microscope. So this is when the semen comes in. We always have the computer next to the microscope, so you can type in some details about the stallion. You have a look on the screen to see how it's any good. And then we're going to maybe weigh the samples and just see how much semen's there. Then we have a water bath, so everything's going to be in the water bath ready. So that's the next thing. We're going to pour Estender into the freezing, into the semen. Here's what we prepared earlier. This is a centrifuge going, so we've got some semen spinning down here, and we're going to see that in a minute. See how we get the pellet off for freezing. So then we have the centrifuge, and then we come through. We're going to talk about freezing extenders later as well. Then we've got the straw filling and sealing machine, so we're going to see how that operates. And then we come into here and see how the filling and sealing machine goes. We've also got on here, which we're going to show in a minute, which is other ways that we can fill these straws. There's a manual filling and sealing way, as well as an automatic one. So we're going to show all that as well a bit later. And also how we can freeze semen with floating wraps. We're not going to go in, we'll go into that room a bit later, but our freezing machine is in there. But I know we spoke a bit less last week, but there might be new people. I think we always get, quite a few 100-odd new people each one on these webinars. How important do you think it is to set your lab up properly, and in order to get that good quality semen at the end of it?
So, like I told you last time, the quality of the semen, we can only keep the good quality we get for horses. We can make a few hundred mistakes or small things, do wrong, or small thing to get the quality down. It's not the most important thing to get the quality as I get from the stallion, or even with some extenders a little bit better. And therefore, it's very necessary to work really clean, to are really organized in your life. For example, I built a new lab for 2 years.
Yeah, you got a new place.
And now it's even so that I have my complete lab, and for freezing everything only in one loop. So it's, yeah, you have to be really organized with a good quality.
No, good, but when you're talking, I can hear you okay, Bart, but when we speak, don't we can talk even louder still. That'd be good. But anyway, don't come on over. But I think it's, like you say, it's so important. I went to a lab a while ago, and they actually had the stuff spread all over the place. So they were moving from one part of the lab to the other. So try and do it in methodical order. Before we go through the processing side, and the other thing is to say we do help with the lab setups here. So anybody wants to set up on the lab freezing, just let us know, because me and Bart both enjoy that side of things. Just one thing, Minitube are our sponsors tonight, and I say we've obviously they supply all the necessary equipment to freeze and collect off stallions. So here we have an array of equipment. From all the straws that they produce all the straws that you can, all the different colours, produce the goblets, so we've got all the goblets, even the chilling packs, they've got the extenders. They are slightly a one-stop shop, and Minitube have been around for a long time, and they've perfected all their extenders, so they have an array, we're going to talk about this in a minute, an array of all different freezing extenders. And they do floating wraps, and they even do, they've got a slightly more updated version of the Sperm Q here, but they do all sorts of that. So they do the full range, and even the DUI catheters for inseminating your mare. So again, you can get all this through equine reproduction supplies. It's where the distributors of Minitube, but I know there's a lot of people from a lot of countries out there, and Minitube I know have a representative virtually in every country around the world. We've got a poll question coming up now. I don't know if Rachel, are you ready for this before we start? One of the things, if you've had, just really for the people that have had, if you've got stallions, how many of you have had semen frozen? And it's just a simple yes or no answer. So have you frozen from your stallion? And if you have frozen, have you done it for export, or is it just for domestic use? So if you can fill out that, that'd be quite good. How are we doing on the sound? Yeah. So, is that so? Right. While that form's going on, it's quite warm in here. I don't know how long you've all survived the thunderstorms the last few days, but I must admit it's pretty muggy in here. As long as we don't have a thunderstorm tonight, I don't mind. Mid webinar, it could be interesting. But we're going to talk about now, we've gone through the basic lab setup, now we're going to go through each stage. So the first thing that we tend to do is we've got our semen here, and this is one we prepared earlier. So all we've done, a bit like last week, we've just got our semen and we literally mix it 1-to-1. Do you mix it 1-to-1, Bart, before you, when you centrifuge it, or do you put a bit more in? Or
It depends on how concentrated it is. So normally it's 1-to-1, but it's really concentrated more than 200 or 300. I will dilute it a bit more.
yeah,
So
we're just struggling to hear you a little bit, Bart. I don't know whether to just plug your headphone in a little bit more, because we're just struggling to hear you a little bit on that. I can hear you just. Sorry.
Please.
Yeah, just we're struggling a little bit on the sound on yours. Whether your thing's plugged in well, I presume, is it?
It's better now?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So you say you dilute it about 1-to-1, do you?
I do 1-to-1. It's a normal concentration. It's a really high concentration, like 300 ml. I make more. I make 1-to-2 or 1-to-3.
So, and there's different ways. Now here, I don't know if Etienne can move this over slightly, so just go step back a little bit and I'll hold them up to you. When we're centrifuging with frozen semen, we spin down generally about 1000 G for 20 minutes, so quite fast. And if you were to spin semen down really fast, if you didn't put a cushion down here, you're going to crush those sperm cells. So it's really important that we put a cushion on this every time we spin. Otherwise, you can, but you can only spin at, say, 500 or 600 G, and you're only going to get a 75% recovery, whereas this, you get about a 95% recovery. So with the frozen side, there's different cushions. There's one called OptiPrep that a lot of people use. There's the mini tube. I've got their own cushion that they do, and IMV do their own cushion as well. So there's lots of different cushions, and it does what it says on the tin. It's a cushion at the end of the day, so the semen sits on it. And all we do is these are 14 gauge needles that we use. They're pretty handy. When you take it up, when we overtake it, we always blow a bit through, because what we don't want to do is push any air through our semen. And we've got 2 tubes, so we just tend to usually put a mil on the bottom of each one. So you see that there, okay? And yeah, I literally just put 1 mil, and then we put another mil. Just Bart, sometimes you put a smaller amount, don't you, Bart? Sometimes.
Yeah, because I found out I use one cushion OptiPrep. It has something inside that is positive for semen if it's in a small amount. And so I try to go down to 0.2, but not every stallion. That's what I always say. The stallion have to show me what I have to do. So some easy stallions, they accept it, but stallions are not so easy. They maybe go down. So therefore, then I have to put, like you, 1 or 1.5 ml inside, take some out later.
Yeah, so we put 1 mil, and then we can, at least then you can spin the semen. I think you maybe spin it slightly faster than us. What speed do you spin it at?
Yeah, but I stop in 10 minutes, not in 20.
Yeah, that's a good point. You do 10.
But I stop at 1,400 G.
1,400. Yeah. So we do 1,500. Yeah, we do it at 1,000 for 20 minutes, and you do it 1,500 for 10 minutes. So so we literally mix it 1-to-1. The semen's what we just done there, and then we pop this in the centrifuge. Remember, you need to have a centrifuge that is has swing out rotors. So we literally put it in either side, and then you put this down, lid down, and then you set it. We set it at, say, for 1,000 G for 20 minutes. Yeah.
There's a question that's come in. What is the cushion made of?
It's a very good. Do you know what the cushion's made of, Bart? Because I don't.
I think there's some sugars inside, because if you have a glass or there, it's really sticky. So I think it's a lot of stuff. But I read there is something inside that's really positive for the semen, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
But I know there is some stuff inside in
It
small
is.
amounts positive for the semen, but exactly what's inside, I don't know.
It is fairly sticky, you're right, and it's but we do find it works really well as a cushion, and it doesn't seem to harm the sperm cells at all. And so, yeah, I'm afraid on that question I can't give an answer. I don't exactly, but I know it works really, really well, and I find you can spin the semen down a lot faster. Just while waiting for the semen to finish, I'm going to go through this on our presentation a bit later, and it's all, to me, I love the data and finding out, you know, why it hasn't worked or why it has worked, and we need to pick up. So you may be able to, Etienne, go into this. I don't know whether you can see a lot of this, but we're going to show it on the PowerPoint later. So we have here the date, the outside temperature. Even we take the stallion's temperature as well. We do a health check for abroad. We put the time of collection in. We put how many jumps. So if a stallion takes 2 or 3 jumps, the semen quality is going to go down. We even put the initials, the collector's initials, because we find some people have a certain affinity to that stallion and just collect off him better. If the stallion produced any gel, we actually add semen extender to the bottle, which we've seen that before on previous ones. We have to put the batch number down because for export reasons, we have to have traceability right the way through that as well. So they can come back, just want to know if there's any issues where that extender was. The volume that you gave us, the raw motility, and then we put the centrifuge speed. So we put how fast we spun that semen and the volume that we're spinning down, and then we go through. But I'll go through a lot more of these a bit later. The other thing that we got, Pam, can you just while we're waiting, we've got Pam's been working with, we've been developing this system called SAINT. And so this can do it all for us. SAINT stands for Stallion AI, Intelligent, no, New Technologies, that's it. So this will do the whole thing for us as well. And this takes us through and tells what countries, and it tells again here outside temperature. So today it might be pretty hot, I must admit, pretty muggy. So we'll put 22 degrees. Time of collection, that puts in automatically for that. How many jumps? Well, hopefully you only took 1 jump. Collections and initials. So we've got these listed down here. Whether the gel, with the gel, we'll just mark it 1 to 5. So we might put a 2 there. Extended semen extender, so you know what it was, and centrifuge, that whether it's INRA, the volume, and the motility, and so on. So, but I'll go through this a bit later, how we centrifuged it, and so on. So, building up all this data for us, you know, I love my spreadsheets, and you can start to build up a bit of a picture of how well the stallion's freezing. And one thing we spoke about last time, and one thing I'll go over and over and over again, every tiny little bit helps when he's freezing a stallion. Is he settled down in his box? You can see up here, all the stallions, then you can zoom in on that a little bit. We can see how the stallions are in the box. If they're stressed out in the box, that's going to affect the semen quality. I think everybody thinks that the freezing semen is in the lab here, but it's not. It starts in the stable. It starts actually a couple of months beforehand with the feed that you can give them, and then it goes through to, you know, how they're collected. If they take 2 jumps, the semen quality is not so good, and you know how well you wash that penis off of that stallion. So every little increment actually helps when it comes to freezing a semen. We notice that more, and I can tell you now, you can change it from a stallion from being basically maybe 25–30% post-thaw up to 35 to 40% by these tiny little changes all the way. That's why on this spreadsheet we must have about 30 lines. I know I've got a bit OCD on it, but it really, really does help when you're trying to build up data from that. So, you know, on that side of it, it's important. So the next thing, you know, we spoke to last time as well about obviously weighing the pots and weighing the semen, and we're just about to wait for this centrifuge to come in. Have you got where's my clipboard on that? There's a clipboard. Right. Just, I don't want to forget anything as we're going through. So, Yeah. Oh yes, when we're centrifuging semen, we want to make sure that it slows down as slow as possible. I know we spoke about this last week, so you want to make sure there's no break. That's it, finished. So we want to make sure the brake is taken off on the centrifuge, otherwise the semen spins back up. Right, so we've added 1-to-1, we put it on a cushion, and hopefully now, these needles, do you use these needles for taking off the band, or how do you take the band off?
Is it winter on top?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use them. Especially them just for the cushion out. I know I make with the pressure water, I take a lot of extender that there is not so much pressure on the semen, and then I take cushion out. I know you are so you can take out all the semen. Okay, we tried a few times with your in this side. So for me, it's easier to take off the extender, the pressure away, then take out the cushion and leave the pellet inside.
Right. I don't know whether your microphone, whether you unplug your microphone and just plug it back in again, Bart, but it's still, to me, it's a little bit intermittent, but we'll carry on that. But I think we got the gist of it. So, right, Etienne, this is, yes, I think so, yeah. So can you see the band here? So, so where I find it easier, if you come a bit closer, just get the light. Now, I tend to just get the light and I go down and I literally just take off that band. That comes up beautifully. So then we do another one. And you can see the separation there. You can see it there when we come up. And there we have it. So and in there is really concentrated sperm cells. So we've taken up the band. There's different ways, as Bart was saying, you can take off the band. Everyone's got their own way of doing it, but this way of trying to just take off the semen without having much of the cushion, and obviously much of the extender as well. So when we get this, we just use these flip top pots. Oh, Pam's got one here prepared. And just remember, we write on everything. So right the way through all this, we have all the names of the stallions on all the instruments right the way through, so we can follow it through, and on the centrifuge tubes and everything, so we don't get anything mixed up. So again, when you're pushing the semen out, push it slowly. Don't force the semen out. This is precious goods we got in here now. Every little sperm cell counts right the way through. So just gently push that through. And there, if we're to look under the microscope of that, actually we have a quick look. You'll see the sperm cells are so dense. Pam, can you just wrap one up for us on that, please? Can you put some semen on the side? There we go. So while Pam does that, we'll just... So in theory, it's got a cell band volume, and then we tend to use our own freezing extender. And it's just trying to work it out roughly how much we should put in here. It does depend on the stallion. Sorry.
You can hear me now?
Yes, that's good, Bart. Yeah.
Okay, so
we thought we could. Try just unplugging it and doing it without the headphones in, see if it's any better. And put it on loudspeaker. I don't know. You can just hear every other word.
But I have my headphone and everything. Better now?
Yeah, try that. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, good.
Okay, so I prefer to you put it now really concentrate in tube. I keep a little bit in the centrifuge glass, and then I put about to 5 ml new extender before I make my finally thing, because I think now you have too much concentrated semen, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it looks really concentrated.
Yeah, you're right.
So
Yeah.
therefore, I put a little bit, maybe 5 or maybe 6, 7 ml of extender, and it's they to protect a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that's my way. So
yeah, and as I say, we've all got slightly different ways of doing it, and you're right. It's just judging it, because we use a nuclear cell counter to work out the concentration at this stage, and different people will have different volumes, how concentrated they want the semen to be. So we tend to do ours at 300 million per mil, which is 150 million per straw. Some people do it 250, some people do it 200. It varies around. Everyone's got a slightly different opinion on this. So on here, I've hit it fairly well spot on.
But I think again, it's a little bit the stallion who say,
yeah,
how much you have to do.
That's it. There is a bit of stallion variability. So this stallion has come back now. I've added extender to it to dilute it out. It's 25 mils, and it's told us it's 393 million sperm per mil. So Pam's put this in the formula. And if we want 300, it straight away told us we've got to add 8 mils, and we got 61 straws. So literally, all we do here is take out 8 mils of our extender, and then we add it to our freezing medium, and that should be really diluted out. That should be absolutely spot on for 300 million per mil. Any questions?
Yep, a few coming in. So somebody said, how many mils is there usually in a band of semen?
Ah, that's a good point. There's usually, what would you say, about 6 or 7? Yeah, it depends on the stallion, but in the concentration. But the question was, how many mils are on that band? And it obviously varies on the stallion. Someone's asked that question, but maybe 3 or 4 mils depending on per vial.
Yeah.
So maybe
I
6
do
or
it the
7
other way,
mils.
like I told you. I take the bed off.
Yeah.
So I leave it in tube, and then it's almost 5 to 6 ml. So it's so much. But it's
good.
really concentrated.
Yeah, I think you have to find out what you're used to doing about getting that band. But once it's diluted out, the beauty about this system, and this is what's so good about the nuclear cell counter, and and the iSperm can do it as well. Is now, if we test this again, it's going to be fairly close to 300 million. So we've taken the band off, we've diluted it to 300 million, and now we've got to fill the straws. Okay.
Print the straws first.
We've got to print the straws. Thanks, Pam. Yes. Right. Okay, we come this way. Just being joined by Chloe. Chloe's a vet student from Nottingham, and she's going to be watching the background. Before we go any further, I think we've got to talk about freezing extenders. Etienne, if you come over here a little bit. So what makes a stallion freeze? Now, a lot of you watching this might know about freezing semen. Some of you might not. But we need something called a cryoprotector. We need something to protect those sperm cells. We've just collected off a stallion. We've spun it down at 1,000, or if you're in Bart's case, 1,500 G. The poor stuff is spun down. We've resuspended it in an extender with loads of, you could say, chemicals and all sorts in there. We're going to freeze it down to minus 196 degrees, and somehow we've got to bring it back to life to get a pregnancy. So there's a lot of science that goes into this, and one of the things, it's like an antifreeze. There's something that we've got to permeate that cell membrane, dehydrate that cell, and protect it against the potential freezing process. So always imagine it's a bit like your frozen pipes in the wintertime. When they freeze, the first thing, when things freeze, they expand and rupture and break, and that does the same to a sperm cell. So we need some way of stopping that. And it's a bit like what you've got in your car, your antifreeze. You don't want to start putting antifreeze in your semen, but we need something. And there's a few different ones out there. One that's been used for quite a while is called Glycerol. And that's mixed sometimes at 2%, sometimes 3%, sometimes 4%. People have got different variants of that, of what that should be. So sometimes we use that. There's another one called DMF, which is dimethylformaldehyde, and that's another one called MF. So there's lots of different cryoprotectants out there, and they're usually in these actual freezing extenders that you can see here. So the freezing extender I think is a real big part. How much of a part do you think the freezing extender plays in whether a stallion freezes well or not, Bart?
Oh, about 80–90%.
Yeah.
If I start to freeze the stallions I collect first time, I make the collection in 2 sizes, one with the protection of glycerol and one with the protection of the DMF. And then the stallion after it will tell me which protectant he wants to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the semen or the stallion, I always ask the stallion or the semen what they want, and then they give me the result, and that's the way we do.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to get the SIS extender because that works perfectly for almost my stallion.
Yeah, thank you, Bart, for that. I mean, I must admit, that's one thing we pride ourselves on. We're not here just to obviously sell our book. We've got to give a full range. There are lots of different extenders out there. So the mini tube have got a huge range of freezing extenders, actually. So they have, it's quite a nice little pack here. So you've got a centrifuge medium. They have the cushion here. You can put the cushion on. And then they have all these different ones, different freezing mediums that you can try. Like Bart was saying, you can try all these just to see which one actually suits your stallion. So it's a nice little pack here that Mini Tube do, and it right across the range, and hopefully one of these will suit your stallion. As I say, we've got to be totally impartial here, so there are lots of others out there. Viability, who sponsored our last week course, they do IVD freezing extender, which I think's got glycerol in it, and I know a lot of people use that one. Freeze is very popular. It's made by IMV, and they do a freezing extender. Again, this has got, I think, got glycerol in it. Bota Creo, Marco, if you're watching, I am still pushing this. Yeah, so this is another one. I think it's sort of more egg-based. I think it's got more either MF or it's got a different type of cryoprotectant in it than glycerol. So this one why you have to freeze a little bit quicker, whereas these ones, some of these you can leave a little bit longer to let the cryoprotectant permeate that cell membrane. You've got ours, and I think, I'm not going to sort of go on and on about it, but this is what really, I think, makes us look good. We're just about to do a PhD project and try and make it even better. We're in the process of in the second year of actually making this even better. But this can really make stallions freeze that won't normally. So this is our own extender, and it seems to work well. So that's a bit about freezing extenders. As Pam was saying.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You can
yes,
hear?
Bart? Yes.
I have to say it is not. It seems to be good. Is good. I work with a lot of stallions. This SIS extender, and it's really good. So
No, well,
it's not. It seems it is good.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and we've done a lot of different stallions, and it's very good on viability as well, not just on motility.
Yeah, and also if you look, you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
there's also a few extras who look marvelous in the microscope, but at the end, the pregnancy is that what you want to you need pregnancy, and that's what the importance. And then I am in a good position because our certain limits, we have a few hits. If I have a question about pregnancy or I see in a microscope it's not super good, something about 3 or 30%, then I send it to the labs, they inseminate and mares, they flush an embryo, and after 10 days I know, so with this protector, with this extender, I get good pregnancy rate. And that's the thing. So it's not only the microscope who is looking, because sometimes it's marvelous and you have very bad pregnancy rate, and it looks normal or even not a super pregnancy rate. I think that's very important to check not only the microbe, so even check how good is the pregnancy rate with Extender. And that's what I see with the SIS. The pregnancy rate is really good.
No, oh, well, thank you, Bart, on that. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, well, obviously we found very much obviously similar things. And so coming back to the filling of the straws, so we've got our pot of semen here that we've diluted out to 300 million per mil. And there's different types of straw printers. And this one, yeah, it can print 3 sides to on a straw. So let's stop here. So on here, I don't know how well we're going to pick this up or not on the camera. If not, yeah, it's not going to. But we'll show it on the screen later. But basically, we have our Stallion name, or us, who's Frozen Stallion AI Services. We put what the name of the stallion is, and also we put the date. We also put the concentration on here. So that's something we've been doing for the last year and a half, so people know how concentrated these sperm cells are. Yeah, Pam's just passed me. We have even got these. I'm not going to write on there. You can even get these cryo pens as well, where you can actually write. Because I know some people write on the straws, so you can get a special cryo pen to do that as well for that. So the next thing we're going to do is, once we fill our straws, printed off, is we're going to fill in the sealant. So we get our semen, and I think, Bart, you've got a similar sort of one here, but we literally, and this fills the semen. We stop it, and then it fills each. And that fills and seals them. At the other end, it seals them. So you can see the seal coming through there. So this fills and seals. One little tip, if you're doing this, it's always every now and again to make sure it's sealed properly. It's important to just push a probe down here, make sure that's sealed, because what you don't want to do is be freezing lots of semen and find this seal doesn't work. So it's always quite good just to test that out to make sure that the semen isn't leaking out. Question, Faye?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
How many mils are in a straw?
In a ½ mil straw, there's ½ a mil. That's the easiest question I'm going to get all night, hopefully. But yeah, it's ½ a mil.
No, you mean.
Yeah.
You make it more difficult.
Yeah. So they were asking how
I make a test. There is.
Yeah. So there are different types of straws. You get ½ mil straws. You can get macro tubes. So what? Yeah, we'll come. Yeah. Well. So when we get this, we'll just pull this out. Push them down. I've filled all the straws up the outside. So you can see here all these ones that have been filled. They've got a little. It's important they have a little bit of air bubble. If you don't have an air bubble, the straw will rupture and break during the freezing process. So there must be a little bit of air bubble in there as well. Somebody was asking, what is a dose? Now, a dose is comprised, could be of one straw, it could be a number of straws, and that varies from place to place. Again, when we do the presentation upstairs, you'll see in a minute, the World Breeding Federation, they recommend a minimum of 250 million progressively motile sperm. So you can, depending on the quality of the semen, will depend on how many straws. There is a big but there. We always do 6 straws per dose generally, and we alter that dose depending on the pregnancy results. So for Big Star, a lot of people just use 1 straw, and then other stallions will use all 6. So I find, like Bart said, it comes back to pregnancy results. Sorry, was that a question? I was stroking your hair, was it? So there are other ways of filling these straws. So this is the manual one. I don't know whether, Bart, you've seen this one done before, but with a manual filling sealing machine. And all we got here, we have these these clips that we can put the straws in. We turn on the pump, and on here you've got a little hole here, and you can stop the airflow coming through. It's quite a simple way, especially if you're out in the field or if you're not doing so many. You literally put your, you might have to come a little bit closer and come this side of it. There you go. See if you can see that down there. You see that? Tell me when you're ready. And you can see it going up there. So you literally just suck your straws up. You use these cones just to create that air bubble we're talking about. And when we do that, and then we normally have some powder, PVA powder. And then we want to literally just really quite hard dab it in here. We can wipe a bit of it off. The excess can take the lid off that other one, that blue one. So we just wipe the excess of that. And there's PVA, and you can see there's a couple of mils of powder in there. We just literally put it in there, and that hardens the powder up and that seals it. So that's just another way of doing it if you're not doing too many straws or you haven't got all this other equipment as well. With a straw, it is important to see, and I don't know how well, can you see how well we can zoom in on that? But a straw comprises of 3 parts. So you have cotton, you have a bit of PVA in the middle, and you have more cotton. And ideally, you want that semen to hit that second bit in the middle, because that's what hardens and seals the straw as well. So it's important when they're filled, they're done properly. And once we do this side of things, then we just wipe off any excess water, and then we want to try and just get any the air bubbles, ideally, when we're freezing with this, in the middle for freezing. So that's just another way of obviously filling. Many tube do a single straw here. So I haven't used this actually, but this works on a pump, and you can actually fill straws up individually as well. Another way that you can do it, if you want, a very simple way, we do this with canine semen actually, is we actually get 1 straw. If you were to get a 1 ml syringe, you put a pipetta. Have you seen this way done before, Bart?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't use this in Germany though. You'd be there all day, wouldn't you?
Yeah, then we need a few people more.
Yes, you know, a lot of people.
To do it right.
We did this actually. I think we did like this way when we did the elephants. And I don't know where you can zoom in here, and you can literally just suck the semen up. And then you always want to leave a little bit, so again you can get your air bubble there. So that's just another way of filling a straw, quite an easy way. And you can use your powder, or you can use the sealing method. You can see you've got your powder in there, and then you just want to harden it off.
But one question now from me. Really?
Yeah, I can hear you, Bart.
Okay, one question. The straws are on side closed already or not?
Are they closed?
So the straws are signed already closed with cotton or not?
Oh, can't hear
One side.
One side has got the cotton, yeah.
Yeah, that's close. So you can do is take your mouth and they are full.
You're right. I'm not doing that tonight, Bart.
And nothing happens.
I know, you're right. And we do that. We're going to, when we do our advanced course, we're going to do an advanced course on that, on low dose insemination. You're right, we do that. And you're right, you can actually go down and actually just suck the semen up that way. And you're right, with a cotton bung, it doesn't go through it, I promise. Yeah, so, but you're right, you can do it that way as well. So there are various ways that we can actually take this semen and get a dose of semen. Right, so moving over. Doing a good job there, Etienne. Thank you. Oh, Pam, can you get us those rest of those straws so we rack them up? So there's various ways of racking these straws up. And so sometimes we put them on floating racks. Some people have got the floating rack system. They can do it this way. Or with our way, we actually put them on these racks here. And we just get a ruler. We're going to make sure this is all at mini tube. Their freezing machine. We put another rack on top. Obviously, we normally got quite a few more straws than this, and and then we always put a test straw on top. We'll show you that in a minute. And then we take that and put that in our fridge, not freezer. And this is the difference where it takes. So sometimes you'd be putting in your freezer for 25 minutes. So it's 25 minutes if you're using our extender. And I think, I might be wrong, sorry Mark, I'll get it wrong, but it's about 25, 30 minutes for the Bota Prio as well. And it's about 2 hours for the Glycerol. Is that about right? Is that what you would say, Bart?
Yeah, I prefer to do if I collect free of things in time for free. So I start the free Glycerol, and then they are already in the refrigerator then, and then the last one take one with DMF, so with tire, something like this, and then I have 20 minutes, 25 minutes free, and then you have really good results. Yeah,
so in other words, you do your Glycerol ones first. Is that a question?
No, I was just going to say, could Bart just hold his microphone next to...
Yeah, somebody been asking that maybe if you hold your microphone near your mouth when, we'll try that next time. It's touching his shirt, is it? Right, right, is that what's causing interference?
Well,
maybe. So with the floating rack system, again, you put this in your fridge for 20 minutes, or if it's Glycerol for 2 hours, and then you literally bring it out. And you literally, as it says on the tin, you can float your semen on top of the liquid nitrogen. Most people usually about 10 to 15 minutes, usually about 15 minutes, and then take it off, and then you freeze it. And that's with the frozen wraps. And these work very, very well. These are from Mini Tube as well. So it's hold off and not wearing gloves. By Pam. So have I missed anything out, Pam, before we go into the other room? No. So if you can get that ready, Pam, we'll thaw it out. Don't thaw it out. We'll just quickly come through to this other room where our freezing machine is. Hopefully, we won't. If you come around here, I don't know how dark that is. Display total. So you can't really see that. We might just show this on the computer, but this is our ice cube freezing machine. This is the one that we tend to use for freezing the semen with. We have a probe that we can put in with a blank straw, so we can actually see how the freezing is going. And we always put a bit of freezing extender in there, so it's just the same. So we put a blank straw in there. We have a freezer and a fridge under here. So we literally just after 25 minutes, we have timers everywhere. So we time the semen, and then we load it into our freezing machine. And it takes about sort of 6 or 7 minutes to get down to minus 140, and then we plunge it into liquid nitrogen.
So we said, do you have to keep the semen warm at this stage? If not, why does it die? Does it not die?
The question is, do we have to keep it warm? So some people I know fill and seal the machine in a chiller. And then they do everything in a cold room. We fill and seal in the room temperature, and then we chill. So you're trying to chill the semen a little bit before the freezing. I think that's what they meant, isn't it? Yeah. So anyway, we'll come over to the post thaw.
I think.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
I think even you have to chill down to 4 degrees, because the machine you start to freeze is also at 4 degrees. My machine is.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, you're right. We still start at 4 degrees.
We work room temperature. It's going down a little bit down, and the machine starts at 4 degrees. So I put it in the refrigerator for 20 minutes. And if you have the source, it's 4 degrees then. So then you have one line going down from room temperature down to 4, down to minus 140. And go.
Yeah. So that's it. So it starts at 4 degrees, and then some people started at 25 degrees. in a freeze machine. I don't always like that to find in the liquid nitrogen comes in and out and it jumps about a bit. I'd rather put it in the freezer, the fridge for 20 odd minutes, or if it's glycerol for a couple of hours, and then you're right, you start it off at 4 degrees and then that takes it down to -140. One little thing that we've got here, and I can show you, is that if we've got a real tricky stallion, we haven't showed many people, I mean, I don't know whether even I've told you about this, Bart, but is that, if it's going to work, is we do, whoa, way up, it's going a bit fast there. But we do a slow, on certain stallions, we will do what's called a drip feed system. So we will literally drip feed the extender in. If we think the toxicity effects are too quick, we actually have this system. But again, we might just show this another time when we are doing more advanced procedures on that. But that's something else that we're just starting to do. Right, so we've frozen our semen now. We've fast-tracked it. It's done its 25 minutes, and we're going to thaw it out now. So we're going to thaw our semen out. We've got some semen in there. Got some gold, yes. I hate myself, I told off. Thawing the frozen semen out is fairly straightforward. We tend to do it at 37 degrees for 30 seconds. So we're just going to put a couple of straws in here. Where are they, Pam? And so we're literally just going to grab a straw out. And this is liquid nitrogen, is minus 196 degrees. It's incredible. This can keep semen suspended in animation for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's an amazing liquid that what it can do. So once it's frozen in this, it's frozen in time. So anyway, well, enough of me waffling on. I'll throw this into our water bath. So we do one. Oh, should put the balls down. And then we throw the other one in. We are going to do a webinar all about thawing of frozen semen, how much more in depth one. So this is a very brief overview of it. So we're going to, because there's certain ways you should handle these straws, how we get them out of the tanks, how we move them from tank to tank. That's going to be another webinar we're going to do in about a month's time. We're thinking about doing that. So, oh, yes. One thing we've got to say is something else while that's thawing out. That's 30 seconds. Is that epidermal sperm extraction? I think, Bart, you do this as well, is where we can, testicles can be sent to us from a stallion that's just recently deceased, hopefully within, pretty quickly, usually within 12 to 24 hours, and we can actually extract the semen. So not many people really realize this is going on. We've been doing this now for getting on for about 7 or 8 years. We've got holes on the ground by it, so it's a last resort. But you've had good success with this, with epidermal sperm, Bart?
Oh yeah, really good. Not only from stallions who die, so also from, you say, some people have some young stallions, they want to keep some semen, but they want to castrate the stallion, then that they don't need to be collected, because then if they start collecting, they get it in her mind, and then they are to be too much a stallion. So a lot of people, especially dressage people, keep them calm, and so they send us the testicles to make it from the epidermal, and there we have really good results. Even the semen is cleaner than from normal collection.
But I'd like to do another webinar. Again, we've got so many webinars to give you out there if you're interested. So we're going to do a whole one all about epidermal, which would be good. Yeah. So we do this here. It's £750, and then you just got to do the health test. So anyway, our semen is now thawed out. So we literally, the crimped end, we just literally want to chop off. And we always, when we're doing our post-thaw, we always do 2 straws, because if you do 1 straw, you might not see any variance. There might be a variance between the whole collection. So we get 2, hopefully get an equal amount. We always do 2 syringes here. One, we have a sterile tube, because we actually take a swab of this. So what we do, we have a perfectly sterile one, and we try not to let the straws go in there too far, and we expel the semen in there, and then we put the straws in behind. So one of the first things we do is we actually take, because we want to test the semen for bacteria, so we get some loops on here, and we take one of these out, mix it in with the semen, and then we just do our own in-house swabbing. And then we just put another one. And this just tests to make sure there's no bacterial growth with that. So that's the first thing we do, because if you put anything in there, you could be adding bacteria or contamination to it. We always want to give it a bit of a mix, because some semen goes down to the bottom, and we just take up 10 microliters. We're going to do a whole webinar all about just semen assessment. Again, I think that's going to be end of September, October, and it's how the size of droplet you should use. And we're just going to put a droplet on here, and we'll have a look and keep our fingers crossed what the semen looks like. Put the cover slide on. Yeah. So we have to take that up to the screen, and yes, pretty good. Yeah. So yeah, obviously we were going to pick a stallion that was obviously poor quality. This is Josh's stallion, isn't it? Josh, this is your stallion, Clippy. So this is so yeah, it just shows that the post thaw. Pam, can you just set one up for the CASA system, please? So we're just going to set one up for the CASA system on that one, so we can just show you what the quality of this semen's like now. Yes, it's pretty good quality. The other thing that we want to do when we're doing, we look at motility, but we also look at viability. So we'll get our machine here, which is the nuclear cell counter, and we'll take 2 droplets of semen, and we can work out what the concentration is. And it can also tell us what the viability is. There you go. So there's 2 different solutions that we have here. So we add it. We've got these cuvettes, which take up a certain amount of semen. And it works out what the total motility is to start with. And then it tells us what the viability is going to be on this other solution. So one solution, what it does is it tells you exactly how many sperm cells are in there. And on this other one, it only permeates the cell membranes, that the membranes aren't intact. So it tells you on the...
I never set it back.
Ah.
Why?
She still works, doesn't it? We haven't said it recalibrate, but you use the nuclear cell counter quite a bit for viability, Bart?
Yeah, always. After each collection, if I defreeze, also like you, 2 draws, I always name the first and the last. Maybe last is not complete full, but yeah. And then after 2 days in the freezer, I take 2 straws out and make the test for motility, viability, and everything. Just also to write down how many straws I have to use for 1 dose. There we are with the dose. So after the towing, I make the decision we need 2, 3, 4 straws for 1 dose.
Yeah, so you do it a day or so later. Yeah, so we use the viability, and we use obviously the motility. Now we can use the CASA system. So we spoke about this is actually the canine one, but we spoke about the eye sperm last week, and I don't know whether Etienne you can go in on the screen there. That's it. Just hold it there about that, and what we'll do is we press start scan, and this is looking at 5 different fields, and this is telling us, well, you can say it's giving you a percentage. So it says 73% motility with a 61% progressive. So yeah, this is yeah, pretty good, really, as stallions go. Obviously, we knew he was going to be pretty good, hence the reason. But you can see on the screen, this is post-thaw, and this is a very accurate way of testing motility on a CASA system. And when we look at that, it counts 5 fields, and it counts about 500 or 600 sperm cells at each field. So if you look on here, it's counted 1,486 cells counted, of 1,100 motile and 900 progressive. You'll have to borrow this one day, Bart, won't you?
Please.
You'll have to borrow this one day.
Yeah, but I'm just looking for poor men, so I don't know if you can invest much for such a machine.
But it's a great machine, but I'm a great believer, like Bart said. I know we're joking about, but I think your eyes, and I don't know whether, Bart, you think, you can really pick out when you just look at it under a microscope. You just get this feeling when you look at sperm cells, whether it's good or bad. So, and the viability.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you want to buy a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think if you have a good microscope and work properly, and you have the nuclear counter, then you have 3 things. You have your good eyes, you work good, the nuclear count, say the exact amount, and the viability. And I think if the viability and the motility, what you see, is about the same, then it will work perfect.
So this one's come back at 56% viability as well. So that's good. So that's correlated really well with the motility. So that's what the nuclear cell count. So what we do is we fill out this form here, and we put, and this will tell us, put in all the straws, the markets. So if we were to put in here, what was it, 60 odd? 64. And then we put the nuclear cell counter. What was that? I can't remember what it was now. It was yeah, 300 something, 56%, 312, and the viability was 56, I think, wasn't it? And then this will tell you what the progressively motile. So this is telling us 600 million progressively motile sperm in that dose, and they say the industry standard is 250. So yeah, in theory, you could cut this dose. In theory, you could cut this dose down by half. That just shows you how that works. So that's a sort of I think a very brief overview. I've got another poll question for you, which would be quite interesting if you can answer. So what would sort of put you off from freezing your stallion? Would it be that he's too busy doing the competition schedule? Are you worried about his changing behavior? We get some people thinking, oh, they're going to send a stallion to us and you know, he's going to come back like a raging bull. So, you know, is he going to come back different? Are you worried about being injured during collecting? Would that put you off? Is it really sending away? I can understand his stallions can be very precious to you. Are you worried about sending away to a place and someone else looking after him? Or is it down to cost? Is it down to the money side? So, Rachel, if you can put that up, that would be great. Is that up there now? Yeah. Is there any questions, Margaret?
Yes, we do. So,
well, more questions.
yes. Somebody's asked, why does a semen dose from a stallion involve several straws, a variable number, whereas a dose from a bull is just 1 straw?
Very good question. Why from a bull do you only need 1 straw? And I think with a bull, especially on the sexive, I think you're only using something like maybe 5 or 6 million. I think with a bull semen, normal conventional is about 20 million sperm cells. It just works better in that way with bull semen. With the equine, we just need a larger amount of sperm cells to achieve that pregnancy result. So we do need that sort of 250 million progressively motile sperm. I say it's a big but there. There are some stallions that can get away with a lot less, maybe only 50 million or 70 million. It's all down to the mare. They're the ones that determine that at the end of the day.
Okay. And what percentage of stallions semen freezes?
most stallions, we can, years ago, it used to be about 60%, 70% stallions. I reckon we can freeze about 80% of stallions that can freeze. I know there was a American friend emailed her, they say she was going to ask that question. So I don't know whether that was you over in America, but anyway, thanks for that one. So yeah, we're up to about, I reckon about 80 to 90% of stallions we can freeze well now.
Okay. And what makes a stallion a good candidate for freezing? How often do you find that they don't freeze?
So what makes, Bart, I don't know whether you heard that one, it's what makes a stallion a good candidate for freezing.
Again, I didn't hear. What?
So we've had a question come in. What makes a stallion most probably a good candidate for having good semen that's going to be frozen? What makes him a good freezer?
Oh, what makes him good freezer? I think we have to collect, to test, and then to see how he reacts. I cannot say this stallion has good semen in fresh, he's a good freezer. So yeah, at the end, you have to try if he's a good freezer or not. You cannot say, okay, fresh is super, I freeze and it's good. So you have to take tests.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. You see some stallions with really good semen quality. For some reason, they just don't freeze. Those are the ones we're always scratching our head slightly. But I think for start with, I always like to look at the testicles, palpate the testicles, see if they're soft, see if they're nice big testicles. So it's looking at that side of it. But yes, just because they've got good testicles does not mean they're going to freeze, obviously. But it can help. So I think it's looking the whole way through as well.
One last question.
One last question.
Yes, one last one. What age is the preferred age to freeze semen from a stallion?
We do 2-year-olds, but I'll be interested what Bart thinks of this. But I find it's very much breed dependent. So some of our heavier breeds, they don't reach their maturity to the age sometimes 4 or 5. So if we were to see them as a 3-year-old, they really might not be sexually mature enough to be producing good, viable sperm for freezing. So, and we get some of these little Welsh cobs coming in, they're feisty little things, and they can mature very, very quickly, and we find that we can freeze them a bit earlier. So I think it is a lot of it down to the breed. We have, as I say, done 2-year-olds. Ideally, we like them as 3 and above, but I don't know. The question, Bart, was when was it?
What age?
What age can you start freezing off a stallion?
To get the stallion who tells me, I get each year a few stallions from 2.5 to 3, and some stallions you collect 4, 5, 6, 7 times. You try, fresh is good, freeze, it's okay. And some stallions you have to wait doing 1 complete season of fresh semen, and then they are collecting and doing everything and half a year older, and then they start. And some stallions, they start only if they are 4 or 5. So it's again what I always say, the stallion tells me what I have to do.
No, you're right. And it's amazing on some stallions, we look, sometimes the semen's not very good. I say we flushed him out, and it might be about 45 or 50%. And I've seen some stallions, you think, God, this is never going to work. But they can be fairly robust, and they can actually survive the freezing process fairly well. So it varies from stallion to stallion. One thing, obviously, on a promotional side, we've got to talk about is that we are doing a mini freeze, which starts on the 30th of August, the end of this month, and we run it till the end of October, 25th of October, where for 20 doses, you could, for under £1,000, what a deal. I mean, you can preserve your stallion's genetics forever for less than £1,000, and it's £995 plus the VAT for 20 doses. That's about a week's delivery. Is that right, Pam, and stuff? Yep, yeah. And also we do obviously the frozen semen handling courses here. So we're going to do a webinar on that, but you can come in here and actually handle frozen semen. Actually, Pam runs all that side of it and does all the PPE, all the protection equipment when you're handling frozen semen, and especially liquid nitrogen. So we run them as well. So that's important to know on that one. And as I say, we obviously run abroad. We do obviously courses and setting up labs. So I think we've just got one last thing before we go upstairs. So as per normal, we've run way over time, but it's great to get all the questions in. Poor Faye.
I haven't think okay.
Yeah.
I like to say one thing. It's about the extender before to freeze. If you use the normal extender with a roll, you show me this machine to make only small drops. I think very important to do it by hand. If I use the glycerol, I can put 5-6 ml, no problem. But if I use the extender, the DMS, I have to do drop by drop. Other side. The cells are going to die too fast, and they. I think the important, if I freeze, that you check this, that you don't do too fast to put the MF together.
Yeah, yeah, that's why we're saying about the slow step feeds. No, you're spot on that. So we literally drip feed it in. Yeah, yeah. So we're coming to the other room. So hopefully it won't cut out in here. So then we've frozen semen, and then we've got the storage side. And we're going to do it, say, with the frozen handling and thawing and liquid nitrogen. We'll talk all about flasks and how we look after these flasks. Etienne, you come down here. This is the most brilliant flask that most of you use. We can talk about that side, how these flasks work and how you transfer semen from one flask to another, how you handle the semen. Or if you can have this is actually one of our super tanks. So if you can have a look right in here, you can see all our semen. So in this tank, there's about, I think there's about 250,000 straws in this one tank. What we can do is we can actually spin it around so you can see all the different layers. It's about 5 layers high, so you can see all the straws in there. But we'll do that on another webinar. So, right. So I think we're virtually done in here. So Rachel, we're going to go upstairs now. So we're going to do a PowerPoint. So we're going to go through a few more techniques, a few more slides, and then we'll just finish off with this PowerPoint presentation. So Rachel, if you can play, I presume we've got a bit of a video to play while we hop upstairs. Can you tell me that's rolling, Faye, or?
It's rolling.
It's rolling. Right.
You want this back?
Right. I don't know if you can hear. Can you see that screen yet, Faye, or not?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, we're on there, are we?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Right. Well, thank you, Rachel, for that groovy music. That was pretty cool, I must admit. So, Bart, can you hear me okay, Bart?
Yes, I hear very well, thank you.
Good. Yes. Yes. Got the elephants again.
Yeah, I hope at the end.
Yes. Right, is that, can you see that okay there on Faith?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just going to touch a little bit about where we're up to today. And we've got over 200 people still watching, Bart. So we haven't bored everybody yet, or haven't bored everybody. So which is good. So bit of what we're going to talk about is the outline is about the semen freezing methods. It's going to be a bit of what we've already been through, but also a bit about sort of frozen semen handling as well. You can bring your chair around a bit more to see the screen. First of all, I've got to thank the sponsors. Again, we said it couldn't do this without them. So we've got Minitube, who were the sort of one of the world leading distributors of animal reproduction of equipment, everything from the cows, the pigs, and the horses, and even poultry they do right across the range. We're the Minitube representatives in the UK, equine reproduction supplies, and Spillers are a series sponsors right the way through the last 5 webinars. So we thank them. Just a little bit about ERS. What we tell you about them, it's a company that I've been running now for I think about 12 or 13 years with Ellie, and we supply all the equipment right the way through from Minitube and to AVs and centrifuges as well. Just on the, we've got a slight glitch here. There we go. And the Minitube have obviously all their own products, and they've been supplying. They do all the freezing products and so on. So they have got a sort of a wealth of knowledge when it comes to setting up labs and for all different species. So where does successful freezing semen start? And I think I've already alluded to this. It doesn't start in the lab. It actually starts quite a way beforehand. I believe it starts in the stable, and it's at every stage of management. It really makes a difference. With fresh and chilled, you can get away with a lot. With frozen, yes, if you get good freezers, they can freeze all the time. But it's not like with a canine semen, you tend to have really, really good semen or really, really poor semen. With equine, you tend to have quite a lot middle of the road. You have some really, really good ones, and you have a few poor ones. So it's trying to get those middle of the road ones slightly better. So yeah, we've been through this a few weeks ago. So it starts off with a washroom or AV prep room. The lab, obviously, we try and have the lab as warm as we can for when we're handling all these the diluents and the semen. It wants to be a nice, warm, sterile, or clean as you can environment. The collection area, we've done a whole webinar on the collection area. If you ever missed any of these webinars, you can actually see them again. British Breeding have got them all on their website, and we've got every stage right the way through with this as well. So coming onto the freezing side, yes, there's certain basic bits of equipment that you need. I didn't show you this actually. We've got one of these warming plates, again from Minitube, and we just put everything on here just to keep them a little bit warmer. We use these flip-top pots and these centrifuges, and as you most probably, if you were here last week, you've got to take these lids off these centrifuge tubes. They can really smell and be toxic, so air these tubes before you use them. Syringes, just really for putting your pellet down. Remember, if it's got semen contamination, we don't use the rubber bung, but when we're just drawing the cushion up, we tend to use just these 1 ml syringes as well for aspirating them. Just basic equipment. You need a microscope for looking at the semen, a water bath for heating your freezing extenders, and the nuclear cell counter. And I think it was Bart was saying before, the nuclear cell counter, I think I'm right in saying there's one bit of equipment you would not want to lose in your lab, Bart, would be the nuclear cell counter. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the microscope and the nuclear cell counter are the most important things we need to have.
Yeah. Then you need a centrifuge, and centrifuges come down quite a bit in price now, and I think we sell these, and Minitube sell the same sort. A straw printing machine, Minitube, and then you've got a filling and sealing machine. You need a fridge, a freezer, or some way of actually freezing this semen, and you need a way of working out calculating how many cells are there. So we can use the nuclear cell counter, you can use the mini tube photometer. Just remember, when you're using this photometer, it only works on raw semen. You can't use Estender because it counts the Estender as semen. The gold standard is the Hemocytometer. And again, with all these things, we can, if you're interested, we can tell you a bit more about them. Email us, or we can do a course on them as well. Cryopens for writing on straws or labels, and also the manual filling and with a PVA powder is something else that some people might need. Oops, we've gone through. Freezing extenders. Say there's lots of different other equipment you need. You need some OptiPrep for a cushion, or some centrifuge extender. You need some freezing extenders, ones like ours, or INRA, or Botacrio, or the ones from Minitube that sell. These are the freezing forms. I'm going to go through the freezing forms a little bit more in detail. Record every single collection, the semen quality, the external influence factors. So what's happening outside the stallions' boxes? You know, is it temperature? We always notice some stallions, if it's a really cold day, they don't give you quite as much semen. Record every straw and dose number. We've come back to the lab. So we said about the lab, it needs to ideally, the equipment, some of the stuff wants to be at 37 degrees. We tend to have the room at 20 degrees. Well, at the moment, it feels like 28 degrees in there, but that's the time of the year. So this is a bit of a summary of how we collect, we get the semen, we get the sort of the gross characteristics and the progressive motility. We note that down. We centrifuge the semen. We re-extend the semen. We fill and print the straws. We have a chilling period depending on the cryoprotectant, and then we freeze indefinitely down at -196. So just going through it, we saw this last week. You can have different types of ejaculates. So we can get the normal. I think we always want to look at the color. We can get ones with blocked ampullae. We can get a bit of urine contamination, and sometimes we can even get blood contamination when this happens. We actually, with our freezing stallions, we actually put about 20 mils of extender in there with a lot of stallions. I know, Bart, we spoke about this before, but you do this with some of your stallions, don't you? Just to help them dilute the seminal plasma out.
Yeah, for sure. If they, for some stallions, some problems with their seminal plasma, or even stallions have, I know, a quite low volume, a really high percentage of concentration, then I let them ejaculate directly in from extender to break directly the semen.
And you're right, and that's when it comes back to the frozen semen. It just, I find every tiny little step you try and improve on to make a difference. Anything coming through? Or right? And we weigh our samples, as we were saying. The average stallion is between 150 to 300 million, but that varies from stallion to stallion. Then we look at the motility and how well the semen's moving initially, straight away. And then we fill out this form. Now, we showed you this before. So we've actually got a new database now called SAINT, which stands for Stallion AI New Technologies. But we used to use spreadsheets, and we used this for years. And so you can see on here, we put the date, the outside temperature. We take the stallion's temperature if it's for export to show that it's got no health issues. We do what's called a stallion health check to make sure he's healthy at time of collection. Collection time, how many jumps it takes, who collected, any gel, if we put any extender in the bottle, if so, how much, and the extender batch number, raw volume, and raw progressive. So this is just one part of the spreadsheet that we do. So as you saw before, we just tend to extend it 1-to-1, and then it's ready for centrifugation. And we're doing a high-speed centrifugation, and there's two options, and we tend to put 1 or 2 mils of OptiPrep, usually 1 mil as a cushion, but you can put 0.21 of a mil down, which we'll show you on here. And this is the way I know Bart does with some of his. You get 0.2 of a mil of the OptiPrep, and you put a tiny amount down the bottom. I don't know if you can see it just down there. And all we're trying to do is just to stop that semen being crushed at the bottom of that tube. And then sometimes you can even put two. When I first started doing it, I used to use 2 mils. Now I haven't got so much money. I tend to use the 1 mil to save a bit of money each time. But Bart has got even less money than me because he uses 0.2. Is that right, Bart?
Yeah, but I go back also because you told me that sometimes the viability goes down. So I made some tests now. Thank you for this tip. But yeah, the good ones you can go down to support 2 and you don't need to touch it anymore. But with the more difficult one, you have to put 1 ml at least. Then maybe even 1.5 or 2. Yeah.
Just to, I said, me and Bart have been, I'm not going to go through our family history, but we've been good friends for a long time. And we've been building up this, we try and meet once a year, thanks Faye. We've learned so much from each other. And this is one tip that Bart told me is about putting a smaller amount down and it still works. So with this thing, we never stop learning. And that's what I love about freezing semen. We're learning all the time. We don't get it right all the time, I admit, but we're always trying to improve our techniques all the time if we can. Centrifuging, we have to with frozen semen. It removes the seminal plasma and increases the sperm longevity and quality. Oh, Faye, question?
Yep. Do you centrifuge in your freezing medium?
No, we tend to freeze in a variety. Sometimes we do it in our own medium. Sometimes we do it in the Vital. Sometimes we do it with a mini tube extender, and sometimes we do it with INRA. So yeah, so we do it in a different one. If you're starting off from doing this, what I could recommend you doing it, you want a clear extender as possible so you can see that band, and that will help you get that band up. So that's one bit of recommendation. And we tend to, as you see here, you can do it for 1,500 for 10 minutes. We do it 1,000 for 20, but I don't think there's a lot in it. And then when you've got it out, you can suck the top out. And I think this is a bit of the way that you do it, I think, Bart, isn't it? You take the top off to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say I do.
Yeah. And you mix the OptiPrep in with it because it's only 0.2 of a mil, isn't it? So it's quite a...
exactly. And then it's even for the semen. Yeah.
And then, or another way you can actually, like we're showing you tonight, you can see how it sucks it up with the needle. So that's just another way. You can see it here. I even laser pen, don't I? There we go. You can see it sucking it up there. So there's a couple of ways of doing it, and this is just down to personal preference, really. So then when we want to calculate our sperm dose, yeah, it'd be interesting what you think of this, Bart. So if you get a cell band volume, like quite a high one with a lot of semen, and the density is quite good, and you can add 18 mils, I'm quite happy at this. And we do ours at 300, sometimes we do it at 250. But if you get 8 mils taken off and it's already 380, and you're only adding 2 mils to this, there's not enough freezing extender in there to help the semen protect. Yeah. Do you agree, Bart?
Exactly.
So
yeah, exactly.
So
then you have to go down here to get more freezing extent for the protection.
Exactly. So you want to be adding, I always think at least 1 to 1, if not more, for when you're doing a freezing, ideally for when you're doing it. So a question coming from Faye?
Yeah. Do you have an optimal density for every stallion in a straw? Probably when it's too concentrated, the viability and motility will go down.
It can do. I mean, we've got a master's, as Bethany in our lab, she's doing a master's project on it, seeing what the optimal, there's various papers out there written. We've tried to do our in-house, what is the optimal concentration. Some people say it's 200, some people say it's 250. Some people say you don't want to go over 300. We don't generally go over 300. So We find it works well with 300. I think it varies on the freezing extender. I think that's where a lot of it happens as well. On the straws, so on our one we can print 3 sides. So we've got Big Star and 17. 17. We put the date on here. We put the concentration on here, so everybody knows what concentration is, and our license number as well. The filling of these, you saw down in the lab, it's literally a machine that fills them one end and seals them the next. You can use ball bearings, or you can use PVA powder for sealing these as well. We tend to, for the DMF, we tend to be 25 minutes or up to 35. Glycerol 90 to 2 hours generally in the chiller, chilling down to that sort of 4 or 5 degrees. And then we have this curve. So the green curve is what we want the freezing machine to do. The red curve is what the chamber is doing. And the blue curve is what the straw is doing. And you can see at this stage, about -8, usually, you get crystallization forming and you get a mass heat exchange going on with that straw. So this is really important. This is where a lot of the damage is done to the semen. So this is something we always have to be mindful of when we're freezing. So, and that's the beauty about sort of the mini tubing. You can actually see that as well. The floating racks, these work very well. We did a bit of work comparing them. Yeah, some stallions much prefer a slow digit cool freeze, but the floating racks have got a place, and they can work well. People have got different ideas of how long to leave them there, whether it be 10, 15 or 20 minutes before plunging. You just have to try this out and see what it works with your stallion. So the big sort of $1,000,000 question, what should be in a dose? We did speak about this a little bit last week. So just to start off, a dose is a certain amount of sperm cells. It's suspended in an extender or medium, which meets a certain quality of criteria. And we always try and have a certain standard. But as it sees in the cartoon there, there's only one that's going to get through at the end of the day. The World Breeding Federation, they recommend about 250 million progressively motile sperm. We spoke to about 6 different centers around in Europe, EU centers, and it ranged from, they used to send out 150 million to 300 million progressively motile sperm, but it varies from place to place. And Bart, you've most probably seen it. Do you find with some stallions that, you know, the results vary from stallion to stallion, but you know, some stallions you can get away with 1 straw, and some stallions you need sort of 3 or 4 straws or a certain amount?
Yeah, so for example, we freeze for 10, 15 years. Also try to with straws, because then we say if 3 straws and 1 dose, nobody tries to split the dose. Because if it don't work, it don't work. I have only 1, or you have to do more. So we try to protect our stallions, to give straw, but then in the end, they're so good, most of them, that you do 1 and some you always use 3, and it's even then no easy. So yeah, it depends a lot of the stallion, but at the end, the quality is good. Concentration should be in the right height, then it's not a problem to use.
Because I know
even down to 1 or less.
Because because like there's different ones that you can use, and I know obviously with the Big Star we start off strict, but we've had, I mean, I think you've had very good results with 1 straw as well, haven't you, with his? Yeah, so it works. So every stallion is slightly different. So you can either use some are on 6 straws and some are on 1 straw. We have even got these sort of, I don't know whether you've seen these glass hollow tubes as well that we used to use years ago. You can, I forgot downstairs actually to show you these what's called maxi straws, and they come in sort of 5 mil. Have you ever used these, Bart, these big straws or not?
Yeah, in the beginning of frozen stuff, yeah.
So some people freeze with this, but we tend to use the 1/2 mil ones. And just for setting up laboratories, we're just going back to the what's the semen dose. we're going to do one all about what is the optimal semen dose. So we're going to talk about the fresh, the chilled, the frozen, and what constitutes a dose. I mean, tonight's more about how we freeze semen. So if you are looking about setting up a place, be it abroad or wherever it is, this is something I know I really enjoy setting up the labs. I know, Bart, you quite enjoy this side, especially on the stallion handling side and that side of things. And yeah, so that side of it, if anybody interested, do get in touch, because that's a service we can offer. Other species we've done everything from ondigas to lions to cheetahs to leopards. We're freezing more and more from other species now, which throw up different challenges. Some of these, like the mouse deer here, or some of them are really endangered, and we're trying to preserve some of these ones as well. I'd like to think from our side, we're always trying to push the boundaries of science. We're always trying to have innovative freezing extenders, and Bart's been very kind tonight, saying that, you know, how well he likes our extender. We're trying to use new technologies and new processing techniques. Me and Bart are always talking together how we can keep improving it. We're never going to win until we can get 100% in foal. So we're always trying to do further investigations into research and development. In that event, we've actually doing a PhD student. We've got a PhD student in Nottingham at Trent University. So we're investing in that, and that's a 3-year project. We're 2 years in now. And I'd like to think that one of our things is we're trying to ideally have this as a non-animal based product if possible. So in other words, no egg in there, but also trying to improve this quality as well. So looking at different cryoprotectants. So that's what we're trying to do with this PhD student. So that's a bit about the freezing. On the thawing side, we always send out some handling and thawing instructions, so you should know how to thaw the semen out. Some people have different thawing techniques. There's different sort of equipment that you need. You need a water bath for thawing, a thermometer, towels, tweezers, and tongs. But we're going to do a webinar much more in depth about thawing of frozen semen, and about your PPE and your personal protection equipment when you're handling liquid nitrogen as well. Thawing of semen out, there's different ways that you can thaw out, from 1/2 ml straws to these macro tubes. So with the straw side of things, I don't know if this video is going to start or not. Maybe I've got to click it once. This is a very old video, I think, of me thawing some semen out. Maybe you haven't even got me in there. That's when I had a bit more hair than I do now. But basically, as you saw before, we just do it at 37 degrees. We check the inventory tag, and then we just take out 1 straw at a time. And again, say we're going to do a separate webinar all about handling and thawing of frozen semen, how we do this practically, and why we shouldn't just chuck all the semen in there in one go. The 1/4 ml straws, these are slightly different. Now, the different people thaw these out in different ways, but sometimes it's at 50 degrees for 40 seconds. So if you were to leave these in here a bit too long, you're going to cook the semen. So it's 50 degrees. So it's making sure that you bring the semen out very quickly at after 40 seconds. Usually 1 tube equals 1 dose. So we'll just see if this will play. And this is just how we tend to do it. Let's just see if that'll go now. Yeah, so we tend to have the water bath set up at 50 degrees. They have got ball bearings in the end of these. I don't know whether, Bart, have you ever had the ball bearing fly out of these?
Yeah, they explode sometimes because there was not air or something like this, then the balls go out. Yeah.
Yeah, you always want to wear goggles.
Now
yeah, they can. You have to be careful, because as Bart was saying, they can get the ball bearing can fly out. But we'll do another one on that. On the semen storage, as say, we'll go a little bit more in detail about the semen storage and the tanks, how to store this semen. There are different tanks out there that we can store in. We generally use, I do like the MVE series. They work very well. We tend to use the Spectrum 20 or 30. I'm always amazed at their stats on this, at the static holding time for this is, well, for a Spectrum 35, it's nearly a year. I must admit, I wouldn't want to leave it for a year without being topped up, but that's what their static holding time is. Their working duration is nearly 200 days, but we usually recommend checking these, you know, at least once a month, if not once a week, with these flasks. But they are really, really good now, really robust. They're different to the frozen shipping flasks. And again, we're going to talk much more in detail this another time, all about the dry shipping flasks and how we charge these flasks and how we ship them out with the frozen semen. A few details about how, when we're thawing a frozen semen, again, we're going to go through that in a bit more detail. So we talked about it before, just finishing off with the mini freeze. There is this offer just from end of August, to the end of October, £1,000 or just under £1,000 for 20 doses. Includes 4 semen collections, 5 days livery, and a flush out collection as well. So that's all included in that price. So trying to make it as affordable. We saw on the poll question that came up before, the one thing that put people off was the cost. So if we can bring the cost down or help you out, hopefully this will help a little bit. We do the collection courses, so you can physically come here and collect off the stallions. It's quite nerve-wracking. I remember when I first started many years ago, it's all good and well seeing a collection being done, but actually when you've got to thrust yourself underneath this stallion that weighs nearly 3/4 of a ton, it's quite nerve-wracking. So if you can practice and learn on a couple of stallions that are used to it, it can make all the difference. So we'll be starting them hopefully come October. So in summary,
Can I say something?
Yes, you can say something, Bart, certainly.
Okay, I want to think about cost, but the people have to think they pay a little bit of money, but they get straws to make 20 mares, 30 mares pregnant, and then all set straws and they are sort of leaving one. So at the end, it's only a very small part of cost or investment to save a lot of semen for a long time. So I think the cost of point is just see the relation between the cost and what they can level.
Right, yeah. I think I got you a bit interrupted there, Bart, but I think I got the gist of that, I think. What did you say? Okay. So I think, so that was about the cost. I think you were saying for the cost of it, you get a number of doses. So actually it can work out quite cheaply compared to the doses you get. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not a cost. You see what you invest or what money you get later.
Yeah. And so in summary, I think this to me, this sums up, Lucy put this together for me. So to achieve the best possible frozen semen from your stallion at each stage of the process, from stabling through to handling, it must be analyzed and optimized sometimes for that individual horse. Small changes and improvements at each stage can combine and make a big difference in the end to the semen quality. Got a few questions coming through here. Catherine's asked, what is unique about your freezing extender? Well, Catherine, I'll have to kill you to tell you that one. So yes, we've developed this extender over years, and it is, well, I'd like to think it is pretty unique.
It makes pregnant.
Is what?
It makes mares pregnant.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's the unique thing.
Yeah.
The mare is pregnant.
So yeah, no, thank you, Bart. Yeah, definitely, yes. And Gwenan, it's always great to hear from Gwenan. You've always been great for us sports bars for years. Why do some straws leak with a stilette? Now, this does sometimes happen, and I think there's a variance of reason. Could be a straw problem or a stilette problem. Sometimes it's if any cotton gets in the end of the stilette, that can force it to come up. So I think there's various reasons for that, but I have seen that, and that's something that there is a difference. Why do you use different freezing rates per stallion per extender? Something called, I think, Marika, do you use different freezing rates per stallion or per extender, or do you just use one freezing rate? We generally, I have to admit, I don't know whether, Bart, you use different freezing rates, but we generally use one freezing rate most of the time. So,
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. If I have a lot of problems, I will change a little bit, but normally I have to do one.
Yeah. Richard Burridge asks, Tullis often talks about making changes to the process depending on the stallion. How does he or the team decisions decide, or is this just experience? To me, if you're going to make a decision, yeah, I don't know. To me, it's a gut feeling. You have a look at the semen on the screen. If you think it's just a bit jittery, it could be seminal plasma contamination. You just have to go with your heart, really, and what you've built up over the years, to me, to make these subtle changes. So, Sean, you were asking, what would you say is the youngest age you collect upon your stallion for castration? Again, it varies on the breed. Sometimes 2-year-olds. It does depend on the breed slightly on that one. So I'm just reading out a few questions. If you are doing, this is Caroline, if you are doing epidermal sperm extraction, is the fertility affected if the stallion hasn't covered recently, e.g. died out of covering season? I haven't seen much difference. I suppose it's hard to compare it. Basically, Bart, they're asking if we're doing epidermal sperm, if the stallion hasn't been used, is the semen going to be all dead or no good? And I think that again could be down to stallion individual. It could be an individual thing from stallion to stallion.
Again, I did.
There was the question asked, if the stallion, you're doing epidermal sperm extraction and the stallion's never been used prior to being castrated and getting epidermal sperm, is the semen going to be okay? Because he hasn't been flushed out. Yeah. And I think
because I always try to explain to people very easy. The testicle is the fabric, and in the middle of the garage where everything is finished, and there we take out. We don't take it out of the testicle. So that's what in there. It's finished and clean, and so they have been collecting nothing 3 years. We do the milk, we have really good results and clean.
Yeah. Someone has asked us, what is the average number of straws made from each jump? Well, this depends on the concentration. It can be anything from 40 to 60 to 80, depending on how much he gives us. But I'd say our concentration is quite high, so we may say 50 straws. Why do Gwenan, again, you're putting in these questions good. Why do some stallions not freeze? We can freeze most stallions, but there are the odd one that we can't. But yeah, it can be the membrane side of the things with the semen, if it just can't tolerate the freezing process. But this is something we're always trying to change. I quite like the open-ended AV sometimes on these stallions that we struggle a bit with. Elsa, good to hear from you. Up to what age can the stallion be frozen? I presume. What age can stallion be? I presume we've done. I don't know what's the oldest stallion you've done, Bart?
25.
25. Yeah. We've done. I think we've done. Yeah, some pretty old ones, and it can still work then. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But it does use up with the heat. So yeah, depends on stallion. Always.
Yeah. So I think there's quite a few questions we've gone through there. I think I've done a fair few. Yeah. I think we're getting to the end now. I think we've still got, we've still got just under 200 people watching still. So we've still got a few people there, but just summing up really now. I hope you've, if I can get on here. We've got this quite exciting next Wednesday. I say we're going over to my brother's place right next door. He's 300 meters away. So it's everything you need to know about bringing your mare to stud and behind the scenes coverage at one of those studs. So that's going to be an exciting one. We've been talking about the stallions, I think, for the last 8 weeks. So it's nice to see what the girls are up to next door. And after that, I think this date may have changed actually. So the Thursday, the 10th, I think I may have not changed my PowerPoint slide. I think it's the following week, which will be the 17th. I'm going to talk to Edward about all the new technologies, so about ICSI, about OPU, about embryo transfer. So all that side of it, we're going to be talking about as well. So it's nice to see about that. The 2020 virtual Futurity evaluations, the entries are now open for the evaluations, and stallion owners are encouraging their mare owners to enter their stock. So you stallion owners out there, please try and encourage your mare owners to put their stock in. The Futurity highlights are every single Tuesday at 7 p.m. So don't forget to register. Read that. Also, really exciting next week is the Bolesworth Elite foal auction. You know, Bolesworth never fails to deliver. Every single time it comes up with some amazing stock. It's on the 21st of August, 7:30, next Friday. Please tune in, and you know, there's sure to be some amazing lots out there from some great stallions and great mares. So it certainly is, if you're looking to buy a horse or foal, there's no better place to look than the auction next week. As I say every time, we don't make money out of these at all. All the money goes to the British Breeding from our sponsors, because they put on so much work behind the scenes, and that, I can tell you, they don't make any money out of it either. It literally all goes back into making this. But what we would like to do, anybody has got a spare few pounds at the end of this, you will get a email. Please, if you can donate to the Horse Trust, they're such a worthwhile charity, especially in these hard times. Every little penny helps. So I just see if there's any more, and just have a look, is there any more? So that, just log off from that, stop sharing for 2 seconds if I can, so you can see me on the screen. Is that better there on the screen? So I don't think there's any more questions that have come, in? Yeah. Is it rare? Right, they've got one here from Sally. Is a rare breed stallion has low freezability? Does this mean it can carry on? Sometimes it does. Sometimes, I don't know, Bart, you've seen this, where you get a certain line of stallions, certain breed have poor fertility, but the mare plays a part in this as well. So we see on, it doesn't always follow that. I don't know whether you see certain bloodlines have a certain subfertility part to them or not. Did you hear that, Bart, or not?
I didn't hear, so I healed. I did not notice what you say.
We're just seeing if certain stallions have, with their genetics, whether they pass that on to their offspring. You know, are they you know, so if they've got bad fertility, are they passing that on? And whether have you seen this with certain lines of breeds or not?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think in breeding, one line has really good fertility, they will stay in good fertility. If they are poor in fertility, they will stay. So the son or the daughter doesn't stay the poor ability. Yeah, the line for sure.
Yeah. So I think we've done pretty well tonight. Again, we've gone on our 2-hour bit. So Bart, you've got to go to bed. You've got to be up at Mostbury at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you normally,
I'm used to.
And you're there. It's 10 o'clock with you, and I've really just got to. Have you got the summing up there? Oh, before we go any further, I nearly forgot here, didn't we? Rachel, we've got pick the winner tonight for the Stallion AI giveaway. I don't know whether you can announce that, Rachel, or if you can go off, if you can unmute yourself and tell her who's won the prize. Or have you gone to sleep now, Rachel? I'm surprised you haven't given up on me after 2 hours. Are you there?
Well, I'm not asleep. I'm right here. So Lindsay Howard is the winner of tonight's prize. Lindsay Howard.
Well, Lindsay, I don't know whether you're still listening, but and I don't know whether you've got a stallion. But anyway, you've won the prize for 2 freezing collections and all those doses. So good luck to that, and we'll send you an email out. I've told you when the next webinars are and about the Horse Trust. The last thank you to our sponsors, Minitube, Equine Reproduction Supplies, and Spillers for sponsoring the series. I've got to thank the team. I've got to thank you, Bart. You've been joining me for 3 weeks now. I think I'm going to give you a bit of a break because we're over to the mare side, but Everybody's found you absolutely fascinating, your work doing at Shockamolers, and you've added so much value to these webinars. You're a real sort of British icon now over in England. The amount of emails I get through saying how much value. I know we've had a few microphone problems tonight, but hopefully people could hear through that. And thank you really so much for being a part of these webinars. It's much appreciated. I know the UK breeding side have really enjoyed it as well. Please keep your emails coming in. I know I keep saying this each time. We love the correspondence. If you want us to sponsor any of these webinars, let us know. If you want to hear anything particular, let us know. If you want any more information, just email us. And that's really what keeps us going, is listening to what you like to hear. So a big thank you to my team. Thank you for Faye, who, oh, there's Faye. She's out in the wilderness as well out there. Yeah, thank you for Faye. Faye's been here virtually on every single webinar until about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So much appreciate that, answer the questions. And obviously at the end of the day, thank you for British Breeding. Without them, we couldn't run this. Thank you, Rachel, for putting these on, and Eva and Jane and everybody else in the background, because it really makes a big, big difference. So look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, round 300 meters away at my brother's yard. And it's all about the girls next week. Good night. Hope you have fun, and see you next week. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.